Hello, my people. Welcome back again to this channel. Thank you so much for joining me again. So, guys, I'll be telling you guys so many things you guys need to hear. So, if you know you're doing something for the moment, I want you guys to just drop it aside and come and listen to what I have to tell you. Now, Northern panic is rising again with whispers that Justice James Omotosho may order the unconditional release of Nnamdi Kalu. Secret letters are already flying to the federal government. They say the northern groups that fought against his freedom in 2022 are back at it, threatening and lobbying and vowing to make sure Kanu is either not released or heavily conditioned. That is their plan. Now, in this video, I'm going to be showing you the names, the quotes, and the exact word this group used after Justice Hantu's judgment and the United Nations verdict in 2022. We will also hear the shocking statement of former Attorney General Malami and the urgent call for certain leaders to rise now before it is too late. Now, when Justice Hunter quashed all 7 charges and ordered Kanu's unconditional release in 2020, Nigerians celebrated, but the reaction from the North exposed the forces working underground. Fast forward to today, and the same playbook is unfolding before Justice Omotosho's verdict. Now, these are the CNG's outrage against justice and the UN. The first to strike in 2022 was the coalition of northern groups, which is called the CNG. Their spokesman, which is Abdullahi Aziz Suleiman, came out with a fiery statement, and this is what he said. He said, "It is unacceptable to Nigeria and Nigerians in a particular to the North that United Nations will endorse the platform and speech to be used by Kanu and IPOB in promoting anarchy and campaigning for genocide in Nigeria." Now, CNG condemned the UN's verdict, calling it biased and dangerous. They urged the federal government not to even think of releasing Kanu, warning that it would set a dangerous precedent and undermine law and order. They demanded that the federal government continue his detention even against a court order and international judgment. Northern Elder Forum's threat. Then came the Northern Elders Forum led by Hakeem Baba Ahmed. He was the one that led the Northern Elders Forum. Immediately after the judgment, they urged President Buhari to reject all calls from Kanu's release. The statement claimed that freeing Kanu will undermine Nigerian security and territorial integrity. Baba Ahmed insisted the judicial process must run its full course, signaling their preference for continued prosecution and detention over unconditional release. Now, this is not the handwriting on the wall. We could visibly see the handwriting of the Northerners in this case. Their plan was that even if they should release Nnamdi Kalu, it should come with heavily conditions, or better still, not release him at all. We could actually read the handwriting on the wall. These weren't random statements. They were direct threats, and today we are seeing the same signs. These groups have started sending letters secretly, lobbying the federal government, warning, do not release him. If Justice Omotosho rules for Kanu's freedom, expect this storm to hit again. Now, this was Malami's defense. They entered the forum at the General of the Federation, Abubakar Malim. His statement after Justice Hansu's ruling echoed the Northern Ward's position. Malim declared, this was what he said, Nnamdi Kalu was only discharged and not acquitted. That single line carried the weight of defiance. It signaled the federal government's plan to find other legal means to keep Kanu locked up. Malami argued that the ruling only addressed the illegality of Kanu's extraordinary detention and did not cancel other charges, showing a determination to ignore the court order for unconditional release. Now, this is a call to the Southern leaders. At this critical moment, the speaker, it is now when people started saying, oh, it is time for the Southern leaders, to protect Mazi Nnamdi Kalu. The North has vowed to ensure he's either not released or released under strict conditions. This is not time for the Southeast governors or senators and traditional rulers to fold their hands in silence. If the North can mobilize their power to block his freedom, then the South must match that energy to defend justice. What we are seeing is bigger than one man. Is a taste of justice, of equality, and of the courage of Southern leaders to stand up for their people. That is it, because we have seen the handwriting on the wall now. The handwriting we are seeing now is that the Northerners, their plan is to make sure that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is not released. Even if he's released, he should be released with heavily conditions, in the sense that after giving Mazi Nnamdi Kanu that kind of conditions, that means you're taking away his right to live with those heavily kind of conditions. Now, let me tell you guys the fear behind this reaction. Let me tell you the fear behind all this Northerners reaction. These Northern groups were not just reacting to a legal judgment, they were reacting to what Kanu represents: self-determination, restructuring, and challenging the status quo. The panic shows that they see his release as a threat to the existing power balance in Nigeria. By labeling his release as what promoting anarchy and genocide, they were shaping a narrative to justify what indefinite detention. Now, international backlash. The United Nations Working Group in Arbitrary Detention clearly stated that Kanu's detention violated international law. The UN called for compensation and reparations, which shows the seriousness of the human rights breach. The CNG rejection of the UN verdict exposed Nigerians' growing disregard for international obligation, putting the country's image at risk. Now, Malami's statement analyzed. Malami's discharged but not what acquainted arguments was used as a loophole to keep Kanu in DSS custody. Now, legal experts criticized the statement, noting that the ruling was unconditional and that the federal government had no legal ground to hold him further. This revealed a pattern. When the court rules for Kanu's release, the government finds new charges or legal excuses to detain him. Now, I'll tell you guys secret letters and all the whole lobbying. Reports suggest that these northern groups are already sending letters to the Ministry of Justice and the presidency. Their message is inconsistent. Do not release him without conditions. National security is at stake. This is a repeat of 2022, but with more secrecy because they know public backlash is what's growing. Now, the role of the Southeast leaders. The Southeast leaders, silenced after the 2022 judgment, allowed the North to control the narrative. This time, their involvement is critical. Their lobbying and public defense can counter the Northern pressure. It is not just about politics, it's about protecting the rights and dignity of their people. Now, these are the lessons from the Kenya judgment. The Kenya High Court ruling that Kanu's extraditional rendition was illegal was a massive win. The $120 million compensation order shows that international law is siding with what Kanu, yet Nigeria ignored it, showing the extent of political influence over what legal processes. Now, what are we to expect in Omotosho rules in Kanu's favor? This is what we are going to be expecting. A repeat of 2022. Northern groups will release statements condemning the judgment. Now, secret pressure on the federal government to delay or block what implementation. Possible new charges to keep him detained using Malami's old strategy as what a template. A renowned call for national security over what rule of law. These are things we're going to be expecting if we are expecting that Omotosho should rule in favor of Kanu. These are all the things we'll be expecting. A repeat of what happened in 2022. The Northern groups will now release statements condemning what the judgment. Now, the case is no longer just about IPOB or Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. It's about whether Nigeria represents its own judiciary, respects its own judiciary. It's a test of democracy and the balance of power between law and politics. If the judgment is ignored again, it sets a dangerous precedent where court rulings mean nothing when politics is involved. That is it. So the plan of the Northerners now is how to make sure that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is not released no matter what. That is their plan. They want what happened in 2022 to repeat itself, whereby they'll come and say they will come against the judgments. Now, these are the CNG's narrative of genocide. Guys, just listen. By accusing Kanu and IPOB of promoting genocide, the CNG was painting the struggle for self-determination as a crime against humanity. This rhetorical was designed to scare the federal government and create international sympathy for their position. The question is, where is the evidence of this planned genocide? They keep referencing none has ever been proven in court. Now, these are the Northern political strategy. These are their strategy. These reactions are not random. They are part of a well-organized political strategy to maintain control over Nigeria's power structure. Now, Kanu's release could be embodied over self-determination movements, which they see as a threat. By lobbying against him, they are also protecting the economic and political interests tied to the unity of Nigeria. The judiciary is under pressure. This 2022 case the 2022 case showed how much pressure judges face when they are ruling on Kanu's case. Justice Hantu faced heavily backlash, both openly and behind the scene, for ruling in his favor. The same pressure is now on Justice Omotosho, making this more than just a legal decision. It's a test of judicial independence. If you guys can remember when uh, uh, Justice Hanatu was the one that was ruling in that was ruling Mazinam the Kalu's case. If you guys can remember vividly. Now, when they found out that Justice Hanutu was actually ruling in his favor, you know what? They started putting so much pressure on her. And now the same pressure that they pressured her is not the same thing that they're doing to Justice Omotosho, because they found out that Justice Omotosho wants to actually start ruling in favor of Mazin and Kalu. They started putting much pressure. So the same pressure is now on Justice Omotosho, making this more than just what a legal decision. It's a test of your judicial independence. Now, after the 2022 ruling, northern controlled media houses amplified the narrative of what national security and law in order to justify continued detention. They rarely highlighted the UN verdict or the illegality of what Kanu's retention. This shows why independent medias and platforms like this are critical in presenting what the full story. Now, I'll tell you guys the silence of the international community. After the UN verdict, the international community did not put enough pressure on Nigeria to comply. Western nations condemned extraordinary detention in private but avoided what direct confrontation with Nigerian government what publicly. This silence emboldened the federal government to ignore both the UN and Justice Hanatu's ruling. Now, why the South must do differently? This is what the Southeast leaders as well as the governors must actually come and do differently now. The Southeast cannot afford to repeat the passive reaction of 2022. Leaders must organize legally, politically, and diplomatic to ensure any favorable ruling is what implemented. These people must also document and expose every secret move by these groups to block what justice. This is a warning to Nigerians. If the federal government can ignore both the court and the UN on Kanu's case, it sets a precedent that no one's rights are safe. Today is Nnamdi Kanu, tomorrow it could be any citizen whose rights conflict with the interests of those in power. This case is a mirror reflecting the state of Nigeria's democracy and what justice system. And that is what people don't really know about. Honestly, that is one thing they don't know about. If for the fact that it's Nnamdi Kanu today, it may be on you tomorrow. So we need to actually stop folding our arms and do something about this now. Now, the double standards in justice. When other regions face security issues, the government emphasizes what dialogue and amnesty. But in Kanu's case, the approach has been total what suppression and what detention. This double standard exposes ethnic bias and selective application of justice in Nigeria. In the economic angle, Kanu's detention has fueled unrest in the southeast, affecting what commerce and trade. Some power blocks benefit from the economic instability because it weakens the region's bargaining power nationally. This group opposing his release are indirectly profiting for continued detention. Now, psychological welfare. If we talk about the psychological welfare, the Northern Group statements are not only aimed at the federal government, but also at intimidating the Southeast. By using words like genocide and anarchy, they create fear and try to delegitimize the struggle. This is part of a larger psychological war to paint Kano and IPOB as enemies of the state. Now, lessons from Justice Hanatu's courage. Justice Hanatu's 2022 ruling showed that there are still judges willingly to uphold the law despite political pressure. Her judgment exposed the illegality of Kanu's redemption and the weakness of the federal government's case. That same courage will be required from Justice Omotosho if he rules according to the law rather than politics. So the danger of ignoring court orders. Every time a lawful judgment is ignored, Nigeria's judiciary loses credibility. It tells citizens that the law only applies when it favors those in power. Kanu's case is now a symbol of whether Nigeria respects its constitution or not. I'll be telling you guys the role of civil society. Beyond political leaders, civil society groups in the South must mobilize to demand compliance with any favorable judgment. Legal advocacy, international petitions, and peaceful protests can keep pressure on the federal government. Silence from civil society only embodies those blocking justice. How the North frames national security. Northern groups use national security as a shield for political decisions, yet the real national security risk is ignoring lawful rulings, which undermines trust in government and fuels more agitation. The misuse of security must be exposed in public discourse. The Kenyan example and African was solidary. Kenya's ruling against extraordinary redemption shows other African nations are watching. If Nigeria continues to ignore international law, it risks regional isolation and what embarrassment. African solidarity can pressure Nigeria to act what lawfully. A warning to southern politicians. This is just a warning to them. They should be careful. Future elections will judge Southeast leaders based on their role in Kandu's case. That is one thing they don't know. They don't know that future elections will judge Southeast leaders. Some of them now will be thinking that, oh, let us come and contest for election, we're going to win. But the whole world will ask you guys, what did you do? What did you use your when you were in power? What did you use your opportunity to do on behalf of your brother's release? Did you do anything about Mazen Kalu's release? So future elections will judge Southeast leaders based on their role in Kanu's case. If they remain silent, why northern groups dictate his fate, their legitimacy at home will erode. This is not just about politics, it's about representing the will of their people. So it's high time for the southern leaders and the southeast leaders to not to fold their arms. They should come out now and do something about Mazen Kalu's case to order for his release, because we found out that the northerners, they are doing all their best to make sure that Mazen Kalu is released, is not released, and also to make sure that he's released with heavily conditions. So it's time for the southeast governors to try for their own person. Just like Father Baka will say, Onyara la nwanne ya aka, don't leave your brother. So guys, the hidden fear of a legal war precedent. Northern groups know that if Kanu is released unconditionally, it will set a legal precedent for other self-determination movements. They fear it could empower groups like the Middle Belt, autonomy campaigns, and Niger Delta Wars activists. That is why they frame his release as a national threat. They are trying to kill the precedent before it starts. Now, the international image battle. Nigeria claims to be a democratic state, but ignoring the UN and its own judiciary exposes what? Hypocrisy. Kanu's continued detention despite rulings tarnish Nigeria's reputation what? Globally. Countries and investors are watching how the federal government handles human rights and the rule of law. Now, the condition strategy. Some national politicians are now pushing for a conditional release, essentially keeping Kanu under state control even if freed. This would mean heavy restriction on his movement, his speech, and political what? Involvement. It's another way to silence him while pretending to obey the court. So the impact on national unity. The longer Kanu is held against court orders, the more it deepens the trust between the southeast and the rest of Nigeria. Every unlawful detention is seen as a proof that the Igbo nation is treated as a second-class citizen. Releasing him could begin healing, detaining him further fuels for division. Now, the role of religious leaders. So far, most Nigerian religious leaders have been silent on Kanu's human rights. The intervention could sway public opinion and pressure the federal government morally. The absence of their voices highlights how political fear can silence even faith leaders. Now, using Kanu as a bargaining chip, some analysts believe the federal government keeps Kanu detained as a political bargaining chip for elections and negotiation. His case is used to gain concessions from both the southeast and the north. So this makes his detention more political than legal, proving the struggle is about power and not for justice. Now, this is time for the youth. This is time for youth to awake. Youth awakening. The 2018 judgment energizes many young people in the southeast, showing that justice was possible. The federal government refusal to implement the ruling crushed hope for some and radicalized others. Justice Omotosho's verdict could reignite or completely extinguish that hope, depending on what happens next. Now, the danger of political interference in court. If Omotosho ruling rules under political pressure instead of law, it will further erode trust in Nigerian judiciary. Citizens will begin to see courts as powerless and controlled, fueling more agitation outside what legal means. Kanu's case is a turning point for judicial independence in Nigeria. Let's talk about the global human rights organizations that are watching. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and other NGOs are monitoring the case closely. Continued detention despite court rulings could lead to stronger sanctions of diplomatic pressure on Nigeria. This is not just a local matter anymore. It is international. The urgency for southern unity. Divisions among southern leaders weaken their bargaining power. Yoruba, Igbo, and Niger Delta leaders must align on justice and human rights beyond ethnic world lines. Kanu's case could be the rallying point for a stronger southern political alliance if handled well. So guys, there's this normal ritual that we normally do here anytime. It's a normal ritual that we do so that the federal government will be aware that Mazi Nnamdi Kalu is innocent and he should be released. So guys, please, I want you to type in the comment section, free Mazi Nnamdi Kalu. Please type in the comment section, free Mazi Nnamdi Kalu, so that the government will be aware that Mazi Nnamdi Kalu is actually what? Innocent. So, and also please type in the comment section, justice delayed is not what justice denied. So guys, let's move on. The discharge, they said, remember that Malami said that this discharge was that it was discharged and not what acquitted. Now, Malami's statement was not just legal talk; it became a tool to keep Kanu in custody was indefinitely. This phrase was amplified by northern groups to justify ignoring the unconditional release order. Legal experts argue that this interpretation undermined the judiciary and twisted the judgment to suit political goals. The economic interest is at stake. The continued detention of Kanu keeps the southeast unstable, which indirectly what benefits some northern economic monopolies, controlling trade routes and federal what allocation. Stability and autonomy in the southeast could shift economic power away from entrenched northern elites. This explains why some are lobbying hard against his release behind the scene. Now, historical parallels. The reaction to Kanu's case mirrors how past self-determination leaders like Isaac Boro and Kensaro Wiwa were treated. Nigeria has a pattern: suppress, delay justice, and use national security as for justification. Now, learning from history shows that ignoring lawful rulings often worsens tensions instead of what solving them. So, the role of secret security memos in 2022, leaked memos showed security agencies warning of unrest if Kanu was released. These memos were used as excuses to keep him detained despite the judgment. These are indications similar security reports are already being prepared to influence Omotosho's what ruling. Now, the UN's real position, the UN rarely orders compensation in such cases, but with Kanu, they went beyond, calling for release and demanded what reparations. This shows the severity of the human rights violation recognized what globally. Nigeria's refusal to comply puts it at risk of international legal actions in future. The Southeast grassroots mobilization. Ordinary citizens in the Southeast have a role documenting every violation and spreading what awareness. Grassroots pressure in 2022 forced the conversation into the international what spotlight. Now, this time the movement needs to be louder, more organized, and more legally what coordinated. Political calculations for 2027 election. Some northern politicians fear that releasing Kanu now could boost Southeast unity ahead of 2027 election. Keeping him detained weakens political bargaining power in the region. His case is not just legal, it is tied to Nigeria's what electoral calculations. Impact on Igbo youth participation of Nigeria. Continued detention despite judgment deepens the belief among many Igbo youths that Nigeria is irredeemably what biased against them. This fuels was separatist sentiment and makes reconciliation harder in the future. Justice for Kanu could be a bridge, injustice could be the final break. The risk of conditional release. Some northern voices are pushing for a release under surveillance and movement was restriction. This will technically what obey the court but still silence Kanu what politically. It raises the question: is a conditional release really freedom or just another form of detention? So guys, thank you for typing in the comment section free Mazi Nnamdi Kalu. Please let us keep typing in the comment section free Mazi Nnamdi Kalu. Just like I told you guys, this is a platform where we agitate for the release of what Mazi Nnamdi Kalu. So guys, let's go on. The role of what diaspora pressure. The Igbo diaspora played a key role in amplifying the 2022 UN verdict. Coordinated international lobbying can force more attention to Omotosho's ruling and Nigerians' what compliance. Diaspora voices must unite now to ensure the issues stays on the global stage. This is to show you that the Northerners are not really happy that that Mazi Nnamdi Kalu is about to be released. So they are doing everything possible, to make sure that he is not released. So this is my advice to the Southeast leaders. You guys already know that Northerners are fighting against Mazi Nnamdi Kalu. This is time for us to, put our hands together and make sure that our own brother is what released. That is what Father Mbaka said. We should not leave our own brother. That is what he said. So northern fear of political empowerment. Releasing Kanu unconditionally could politically what empower the southeast to demand what restructuring. Northern allies see this as a threat to their long-standing control over national what politics. The resistance is not just legal; it's about maintaining power dynamic. Now, the humanitarian dimension beyond politics, Kanu's health has been a major concern in DSS custody. Ignoring court orders for release raises ethical questions about the state's duty to protect life. Continued detention despite medical needs could be considered a human rights crime under what international law. So the impact on federal character. The Southeast has long complained of marginalization in government appointments and policies. The handling of Kanu's case is seen as part of the same systematic what exclusion. Justice for Kanu would be symbolic of correcting years of what imbalance. Now, the global legal angle. If Nigeria continues to ignore the UN verdict, international legal bodies can escalate the matter to the International Court of Justice. This would put Nigeria in the same category as countries accused of violating major human rights or treaties. Kanu's case could become a landmark African human rights case. Now, these are the security agencies' stake. DSS and security agencies have invested resources in detaining Wat Kanu. Some officers fear that releasing him now would expose abuses that happened during war detention. There's an internal institution insensitive to keep him detained to avoid scrutiny. Now, these are the media spin after Omotosho's verdict. If Omotosho rules for release, expect heavy media campaigns, framing it as a national security risk. Northern political actors will use TV, radio, and newspaper to push for new charges or conditions. Independent platform must counter this narrative with facts and law. Now, the question of Justice Hanatu's legacy. Justice Hanatu's courage in 2022 was set a legal was the benchmark for fairness. How the federal government treated her ruling exposed the gap between law and politics in Nigeria. Justice Omotosho now faces the same test. His ruling would define what his legacy. Now, the role of ECOWAS Court. ECOWAS Court of Justice has jurisdiction to intervene if Nigeria continues to violate what Kanu's right. Past ECOWAS rulings against Nigeria show that regional courts can pressure the federal government to act. Leveraging ECOWAS alongside the UN could increase international accountability. Now, impact on future separate case. How Nigeria handles Kanu will set the tone for future cases involving groups like Ododuwa and Niger Delta Movement. A fair ruling and implementation could show dialogue is possible. Ignoring the law encourages more radicalization. The power of public awareness. One of the reasons the federal government ignored 2022 ruling was lack of sustained public outcry. Keeping the issue alive on social media, YouTube, and international news can make it harder for the federal government to quietly suppress justice. Awareness is a tool as powerful as the courtroom in its battle room. So that is it, as the courtroom in this battle. So, like I always tell the Southeast leaders, please, never you leave your brother. This is time for us to even fight the Northerners, because we found out that the Northerners don't want him to be released. In fact, they're asking that even if he should be released, it should be with heavy conditions. You're asking them, the Northerners are asking the federal government to give Mazi Nnamdi Kanu heavy conditions. A man that is innocent. This is totally bad. So Northern lobby networks. Many Northern groups have strong networks within the military, judiciary, and political elites. This network are mobilized whenever Kanu's release is on the table. So understanding these power structures explain why court orders are often ignored. The psychological impact on Nigerians. Ignoring court orders weakens citizens' faith in the justice system. When people see politics overriding law, they lose belief in peaceful solutions. Kanu's case has become a symbol of whether Nigerians can trust their own courts. Now, the state fragility factor. Nigeria is battling multiple security crises. Freeing Kanu could show a willingness to resolve one peacefully. Nigeria today is actually suffering from a lot, especially from security crisis. They are suffering. So imagine if we free Kanu now, it could show a willingness to resolve one peacefully. Now, detaining him despite court rulings signals a government unwilling to de-escalate tension. The case highlights the fragility of the state's unity and governance. The historical role of the UN in similar cases. In past African cases, when the UN's ruling was ignored, it led to sanctions and international isolation. Kanu's case could follow the same trajectory if Nigeria refuses what compliance. The UN's demand for compensation shows the seriousness of the violation. Fear of mobilization. Northern allies fear Kanu's release could lead to mass mobilizations across the southeast and diaspora. They see him as a rally point who could reignite the Biafra question globally. Detaining him is a way to keep the movement disorganized. The role of traditional leaders. Igbo traditional leaders have been largely silent or cautious on the issue. Their open involvement could put cultural weight behind demand for justice. Northern groups understand this, which is why they try to influence narratives at the traditional leadership level too. The economic cost of prolonged detention. Now, the continued sit-at-home protests and unrest linked to Kanu's detention have cost billions in the southeast economy. A lawful solution could restore economic stability and investor confidence. Northern resistance to his release shows they are willing to let the region economy suffer to maintain political control. The international diaspora leverage. Igbo communities abroad can lobby foreign governments to pressure Nigeria. Visa restriction and targeted sanctions have worked in other human rights cases. The diaspora role is critical in turning Kanu's case into an international priority. Now, the condition dialogue trap. Some politicians may propose dialogue while keeping Kanu custody as a bargaining chip. This keeps control in their hands while appearing open to negotiation. True dialogue can only happen when he is free and the court orders are respected. Now, what if Justice Omotosho rules against Kanu? A negative verdict would embody northern groups and reinforce the narrative of national security first. It would also crush faith in the judiciary further, making peaceful solutions less likely. This outcome would escalate tensions and prolong the conflict. One thing with these northerners that I started saying that Justice Omotosho is now ruling in the favor of Kano. So they're trying all their possible best to make sure that he doesn't actually rule in his favor by putting so much pressure in him. That's why when they came up with this exact fact, they said that Martin Kalu's case has actually been postponed to 10th October. I was feeling that there's something in this statement that Justice Omotosho said. There's really something in it. Is that it's coming from the federal government or it's coming from the northerners? Now, using Kanu as a warning to others. Keeping him detained despite court rulings sends a message to other activities. Challenging the state comes with no protection, from the law. This is less about justice and more about creating fear. This case has become a tool to intimidate dissent across Nigeria. The federal government faced saving dilemma. Releasing Kanu now without conditions will expose the government's previous actions as illegal. Federal government fears the political embarrassment of admitting wrongdoing in extraordinary jurisdiction. That is why they prefer to delay or attack conditions rather than obey the court outright. International legal pathways. If Nigeria continues to defer rulings, the case could move beyond the UN to the African Court on Human and People's Rights. Such escalation would put Nigeria under regional legal scrutiny and possible sanctions. Now, Kanu's team can leverage this if domestic avenues fail. The Southeast political leverage. The Southeast can use its vote, economic strength, and cultural influence as bargaining tools for Kanu's release. A united political front would force national parties to listen. Division among the Southeast leaders currently weakens the leverage. Now, the cost of ignoring the rule of law. Countries that roundly ignore court rulings create instability within their legal system. So investors, international partners, and citizens lose confidence. Kanu's case is not just a legal issue; it's a test of whether Nigeria can function as a lawful state. DSS and evidence suppression. Some insiders believe Kanu's continued detention is to prevent exposure of how he was treated in custody. A public trial or full release could reveal embarrassing or illegal actions by security agencies. This fear drives some of the resistance behind the scene. Now, the northern grassroots perspective. Not all northerners support indefinite detention. Some fear it fuels ethnic tension unnecessarily. However, the dominant narrative pushed by allies silences moderate voices. Highlighting the difference can help reduce north versus south framing. Now, impact on youth radicalization. Continued injustice in Kanu's case risk creating a new generation of radicalized youth in the southeast. When peaceful legal routes fail repeatedly, agitation often turns more extreme. Releasing Kanu could de-escalate and restore faith in peaceful solution. The southern governance responsibility. Southeast and South-South governors have state structures they can use to lobby legally and politically was for compliance. Their silence so far has been seen as betrayal by many of the people. There are many people have seen that the Southeast governors are only silent about Mazi Nnamdi Kalu's case, so they see it as a form of what betrayal. A coordinated governor's Ferun statement could shift national debate in what favor of release. The danger of secret negotiation. There are reports of secret negotiations to trade Kanu's release for political consciences in the Southeast. This threat this treats human rights as bargaining chips, undermining the principle of justice. Public pressure is needed to ensure any release is based on law and not what political deals. That is just it. So they found out that, oh, some people are actually at the back. Some people are negotiating for Kanu's release based on political issue, not even just because he deserves, but based on what political issue. So the pattern of national security excuse. Every time a court rulings for Kanu's, anytime a court rules for Kanu's release, the government cites national security to delay or block it. This pattern turns national security into a tool for avoiding what the rule of law. The national security is respecting lawful judgment to maintain what public trust. The UN's warning on political detention. The UN's working group on arbitrary detention warns that ignoring lawful release orders can classify a case as enforced toward disappearance. Nigeria is working closely to that line with Kano. This could lead to international legal consequences far beyond legal politics. The role of public protest. Peaceful mass protest after Omotosho's ruling could force faster compliance. In 2022, lack of sustained street action allowed the federal government to quietly what ignore the court order. Public pressure on the streets combined with online campaigns can change what the outcome. The political messaging war. Northern groups are preparing talking points to frame any release as rewarding violence. Southeast leaders and activists need counter messaging ready to frame it as respecting the law. The battle for public opinion is as important as the legal battle. So federalism versus unitarianism debate. Kanu's case is exposing the cracks in Nigeria's federal system. His detention, despite court ruling, shows how centralized power can override what regional rights. This makes his release not just an IPOB issue, but a federalism and restructuring world debate. Now, risk of setting a disobedience precedent. If the federal government gets away with ignoring Kanu's case, other cases could follow. It sends a message that the court rulings are optional for those in power. That precedent is dangerous for every citizen, regardless of what region. International media gap. Western mainstream media has barely covered the details of Kanu's case compared to similar cases in other countries. Southeast diaspora can bridge that gap by pushing the story into what global families, global headlines. International embarrassment has historically what pressured Nigeria into compliance. Now, fear of a symbol of resistance. Some northern elites fear that if Kanu is released, he will become a living symbol of resistance. Keeping him in custody is seen as a way to weaken his image and movement. These fears shows how much political weight his freedom was carries. Now, the question of what reparations. Beyond release, the UN ordered reparations for the violation of Kanu's rights. Nigerians' refusal to pay highlights how the federal government treats human rights judgments as optional. Following through on reparations would set a positive international example. Now, testing the strength of the Southeast bloc. This case will reveal whether the Southeast can unite politically when it matters. A fractured response weakens the entire region's bargaining power. A united front can change the outcome of this legal and political battle. So, guys, like I always say, it is time. We've actually known the plan and the agenda of the Northerners. Their plan now is to make sure that, oh, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is not released, because if it's released, it's going to expose so many things in power. That's the reason why you see they don't want Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to be out. Now, the regional power balance. Northern elites see Kanu's unconditional release as a shift in Nigeria's regional power balance. They fear it could embolden Southeast political voices to demand constitutional change. This explains the intensity of their resistance beyond just the IPOB issue. The legal versus political battlefield. Kanu's case is a rare example where law and politics are openly colliding. Courts have ruled for his release, but political forces have overpowered those judgments. This exposes the fragility of Nigerian democracy when politics overrides the judiciary. Now, the use of fear narrative. Groups like CNG use fear-based languages. genocide, anarchy, national collapse to sway public what opinion. These narratives are rarely backed by evidence but are effective in manipulating emotions. Countering fear with facts is crucial in shaping what the debate. Now, the hidden role of international allies. I will tell you guys the hidden role of international what allies. Some foreign governments have strategic interest in Nigeria's unity and natural what resources. Quiet pressure from these allies can influence whether Kanu's release is allowed. Understanding this hidden player is key to predicting what the outcome. Now, lessons from Mandela's case. Like Nelson Mandela, prolonged detention despite international calls for release can turn Kanu into a global symbol of resistance. South Africa eventually learned that political detention only strengthened what the cause. Nigeria risks repeating history if it continues to defy lawful war rulings. Now, the security agencies' internal split. Not all within DSS and security agencies agree on continued detention. There are reports of internal debates on whether holding him violates Nigeria's own constitution. This internal division could influence how fast a release order is implemented. Now, the role of Nigerian Bar Association. NBA has the power to pressure for compliance with court orders. Their louder involvement could turn Kanu's case into a national legal wars priority. Silence from professional legal bodies weakens the judiciary wars position. Now, the cost to Nigeria's global reputation. Continue the efforts of UN rulings and domestic court damages Nigeria's image as a democratic leader in Africa. This can affect foreign investment, trade deals, and diplomatic war relations. Nigeria's Kanu's case is bigger than IPOP, is now tied to Nigeria's world, global world credibility. So the emotional weight in the Southeast. For many in the Southeast, Kanu's detention is not just legal or political, it is deeply was emotional. Each court ruling ignored feels like a personal attack on their identity and rights. The government handling of this case impacts national cohesion at the psychological what level. Now, the test of 2025. Justice Omotoso's upcoming ruling is not just about case, it's a historical test of Nigeria's what legal system. It will show whether the country is still governed by law or entirely by political what bargaining. The outcome could define the next decade of Nigerians unity what and democracy. Just like I always tell you guys, people have been asking who knows what will happen now. It's as if Justice James Motosho is under pressure by the federal government and the northerners in order not to what release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu because they don't still understand his sudden coming to court and he's saying that they are all going on a vacation, meaning that the court case should be postponed to 10th October 2025. Now, the cultural dimension of Kanu's case. For many Igbos, Kanu represents not just politics but cultural what survival. His detention, despite court ruling, is seen as an attack on their collective dignity. This cultural weight makes the case a deeper than a legal battle. The unity at all costs argument. Northern groups argue that detaining Kanu protects Nigerians' unity, but forced unity through illegal detention often leads to more fragmentation and not what cohesion. True unity is built on justice and not fear. The role of social media amplification. Social media platforms have been critical in keeping Kanu's case alive internationally. Without consistent online pressure, the federal government could suppress the story quietly. Digital advocacy will be key when Omotasha ruling is what delivered. Now, using the judiciary to test public reaction. Some analysts believe the federal government allows favorable rulings like Justice Hanatu to gauge what public reaction, then decide politically whether to obey based on the level of what backlash. Now, this turns courtrooms into political war laboratories instead of places of law. The diaspora's financial influence. The Igbo diaspora economic power can fund lobbying, media campaigns, and what legal battles. Their involvement in 2025 could be decisive in internationalizing the case. Financial pressure combined with legal pressure is a strong tool. Now, the fear of certain Igbo political momentum. Releasing Kanu could energize Igbo political movements, including calls for a president from the southeast. Northern allies fear this momentum heading into 2027 election. His detention is therefore not just legal but deeply tied towards to electoral strategy. Now, lessons from Kenya's judgment. Kenya's ruling against extraordinary detention exposed Nigeria's violation of international law. Even if Kenya condemned it, it shows the strength of Kanu's legal position. Nigeria's refusal to comply damages its standing in African legal cooperation. Public memory and historical record. Every ignored court ruling becomes part of Nigeria's historical record of injustice. How it ends will determine whether that history is one of redemption or what repression. Now the role of religious mediation. Churches and mosques in the southeast and north could act as what mediators. Faith-based advocacy could shift the moral weight of the case. Their silence so far has left a gap in the humanitarian words arguments. Preparing for all scenarios, the Southeast must prepare legally, politically, and socially for any outcome. Release conditional release, release on conditional release, or continued with detention. Strategic planning ensures the movement stays with proactive rather than reactive. The next few months are critical in shaping what that preparation. Just like I always tell you guys, please, we will normally do a ritual here because this platform is used to agitate for the freedom and release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Please do well to type in the comment section, release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and also justice delayed is not what justice denied. So guys, please keep typing on the comment section. So go on, let's go on. The psychological pressure on Justice Omotosho. Judges in sensitive cases like this face enormous political and security pressure. Omotosho's ruling will test whether Nigeria's judiciary can remain independent under such weight. His decision will shape public confidence in the court of years. Now, the international business angle. Prolonged instability in the southeast discourages what foreign investors foreign investors. A lawful resolution to Kanu's case could stabilize the region and open economic what opportunities. Business leaders have a stake in advocating for compliance with court orders. Now, the enemy of the state. Labeling Kanu as an enemy of the state allows the federal government to justify what extraordinary measures. But when courts rule in his favor, that narrative starts to fall apart. Northern groups push this label to maintain what political justification for continued what detention. Now, the cost to Nigeria's judicial reputation, ignoring rulings like Justice Hanatu's damage, like Justice Hanatu damages the entire legal system with credibility. It tells every judge that their verdicts are meaningless when politics what intervene. Omotosha's case is a chance to restore or further what erode that credibility. Now, the national stability argument versus reality. The Northern groups frame Kanu's release as a threat to stability. In reality, detaining him despite lawful orders have created more unrest in the southeast. The facts contradict the fear narrative they promote. So, the power of documentation. Documenting every statement, ruling, and reaction creates a permanent record. This record strengthens legal and international advocacy. The Southeast media and activists must continue complying with detailed evidence. Now, the hidden fear of dialogue. Some northern politicians fear that if Kanu is released, Nigeria will be forced into a national dialogue on restructuring. Detaining him delays the conversation indefinitely. His release would open the door to deeper constitutional debate. Now, lessons from 2022 missed opportunity. After Justice Hanatu's ruling, lack of unified southern action have allowed the federal government to ignore the order. This mistake cannot be repeated if Omotosho rules for release. Immediate coordinated pressure will be critical this time. Now, the role of international courts and sanctions. Targeted sanctions against individuals blocking Kanu's release could shift the balance. Countries like the US and UK have used such measures in similar cases. International legal escalation is a potential next step if Nigeria continues to defy the rulings. Now, the symbolism of justice is further. Kanu's case has become symbolic. Is Nigeria governed by justice or raw political power? The answer will not just affect IPOB, but the entire nation's future governance. Omotosho's ruling is more than a verdict. It's a national statement. That is this. Omotosho ruling is more than just a verdict. It's a national statement. So guys, please don't forget to type in the comment section free Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and also justice delayed is not justice denied. So guys, let's go on. The regional security equation. Some northern security strategists argue that releasing Kanu weakens their control over the east. The argument frames the region as needing constant federal contentment, which fuels destroys. True security is built through justice and not indefinite detention. The political bargaining chip Sindorim. Kanu's case has become currency in Nigeria's political negotiations. Some allies want to trade his release for votes, alliances, or concessions. This politicalization of human rights highlights the decay of moral governance. The impact on Nigerian constitution. Disobeying multiple court rulings in one case exposes a constitutional crisis. It suggests that constitutional guarantees of rights are meaningless when politics intervene. Now, Kanu's case is now a constitutional stress-free. The global south is watchful eye. Other African liberation movements are watching how Nigeria handles this. A fair resolution would set a precedent for lawful self-determination struggle. Continued detention sends the opposite message that power always overrides what's law. The fear of Igbo economic autonomy. Northern elites know that political justice for the Southeast could fuel calls for economic what independency. Releasing Kanu is seen as opening the door to stronger regional what control over resources. This economic fear underpins much of the resistance. Now, Kanu's case as a mirror of Nigeria. The entire saga reflects Nigeria's deeper issues: ethnic tension, weak rule of law, and political what overreach. How the case ends will mirror whether the country is moving toward reform or what further decay. Now, the power of international advocacy network. Linking Kanu's case to global human rights organizations beyond Africa can increase what pressure. Partnership with Amnesty, HRW, and Diaspora Advocacy Network can shift this narrative. The conditional war release danger. If Omotosha orders release, but federal government attack secret condition, it could create a false sense of what it could create a false sense of what justice. Now, monitoring the implementation is as important as what winning the verdict itself. The role of historical memory in the Southeast. The Igbo nation carries a long memory of injustice since the Biafran War. Kani's detention, despite court rulings, tap into that deep historical wound. A lawful release could begin healing Daifans reinforces old scars, preparing for international litigation. If the federal government defies Omotosho, the next step is taking the case to African and UN courts simultaneously. This requires legal preparation now and before the ruling is ever delivered. Now, it turns the struggle into a multi-layered legal offense. So guys, please, just like we normally do here, please, I want you to type in the comment section Freemason Namdekalo, and also justice delayed is not what justice denied. So let's go on. The fear of legal precedent. Northern elites worry that obeying Kanu's unconditional release would set a legal precedent, empowering other detained activists. It will show that the courts can override political detention, shifting the balance of power. The silent supporters in the north. Behind the scene, some northern intellectuals and business leaders see Kanu's case as mishandled. They believe justice could stabilize Nigeria instead of fueling tension. Their voices are often drowned out by louder political actors. The role of women in advocacy. Igbo women historically played powerful roles during the Aba women's riots and civil movement. Mobilizing women as a humanitarian voice for Kanu could change the tone of the campaign. Now, the economic cost of ignoring the UN. Nigerians' dear fast of the UN ruling can affect access to certain development funds and international aid. Investors often view human rights violation as a risk factor for business. Kanu's case has financial consequences behind politics. Now, media blackout strategies. In 2022, there were attempts to reduce coverage of Hanatu's judgment to avoid public pressure. Similar blackout strategies may be used for Omotosho's ruling. Independent media and diaspora platforms must counter censorship with rapid dissemination. Now, the South is the diaspora political power. Igbo diaspora communities are increasingly active in lobbying foreign governments. Their political weight in countries like the US and UK can be leveraged to pressure Nigeria. Now, the human face of the case. Beyond politics, telling personal stories of families affected by candidate detention humanizes the struggle. Emotional narratives can influence public opinion more than legal arguments alone. Preparing for divide and rule tactics. Federal government may try to divide Southeast leaders with offers. It offers street or political deals around Kanu's release. Now, unity is key to resisting these divide and rule strategies. The role of ECOWAS integration pressure. Nigerians' behavior is the case. Nigerians' behavior in this case could affect its leadership role in ECOWAS. Other West African nations are watching whether Nigeria respects its own court and international law, but the Nigerian governments are not aware of it. They don't know that the West African nations are watching if Nigeria is really respecting its own court and international law. Because for the fact that they're already seeing that we're not respecting our law, it gives them the opportunity in the sense that, oh, we Nigerians cannot even go outside the country to win an international Polit- Political strategists fear that Kanu's unconditional release could inspire Oduduwa Republic movement and Niger Delta Wars agitation. They see his case as a firewall, preventing a chain reaction of self-determination struggles. Now, judiciary silence protest. Some judges see Kanu's case as a symbol of how politics undermine their authority. Every ignored ruling quietly weakens judicial morale and independence across Nigeria. Omotosho verdict will be read as either a stand for law or submission to power. The threat to Nigerian democratic image. As a Nigeria positions itself as a leader of democracy in Africa, defying court orders and the UN ruling on Kanu exposed hypocrisy that other nations can use it diplomatically. The role of Pan-African solidarity. Other African movements could adopt Kanu's case as part of a larger human rights struggle. This Pan-African angle could turn his detention into a continental issue, not just a Nigerian one. Preparing for legal sabotage. If Omotosho rules for Kanu's release, federal government may quickly find new charges to keep him detained. This recycling of charges tactics was used after Hanatu's ruling in 2022. Legal teams must anticipate and counter this immediately. Now, the role of international religious voices. Global Christians and human rights organizations could amplify the moral case of Kanu's release. Faith-based advocacy carries weight in humanitarian campaigns worldwide. The power of symbolic actions. Peaceful symbolic acts, vigils, cultural festivals, or global sit-ins can keep Kanu's case in the public eye without violence. Symbols often outlast speeches in movements for justice. Now, the Southeast media responsibility. Local Southeast media must resist pressure to downplay the case. Documentaries, interviews, and daily updates can maintain pressure on both the federal government and the judiciary. The economic leverage of the Southeast. The Southeast contributes heavily to Nigeria's commerce and trade. Coordinated economic actions like market shutdowns could amplify calls for compliance with the court. Now, Kanu's case as a defining national moment. Beyond IPOB, beyond politics, the case is now a national test of consciousness. How Nigeria handles it will be remembered for decades as either the moment the country choose justice or interest for repression. That is just it. So this is time for the Southeast governors. They need to start doing something about it. They don't need to fold their arms. They don't need to fold. You cannot just leave our brother to rot like that in DSS in custody. No, when we only know he's a free person. You know what these people are trying to do? The Northerners are trying every possible means to make Bola Ahmed Tinubu not to release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and even if they should release him, they should use heavily conditions that he cannot even implement. That is what they want. Now, the security vote factor. Some insiders allege that prolonged insecurity tied to Kanu's detention benefits certain political actors financially through security budget. His unconditional release would remove that excuse and expose misuse of funds. The fear of a legal domino effect. If Nigeria complies fully with Kanu's case, it could open door for other groups to demand reparations for historical injustice, including the Civil War. Now, this fear drives resistance at high political levels. The role of cultural diplomacy. Igbo cultural organizations worldwide can frame Kanu's case as a cultural survival issue, not just political. Cultural diplomacy adds a softer but powerful layer to international advocacy. The impact on 2027 election. I'll be telling you guys the impact on 2027 election. How this case is handled will influence what voter sentiment, especially in the southeast and in the diaspora. So, let us be taking a look at some comments here. Now, someone said release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Honestly, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu needs to be released. And someone else said, in all this, Biafra must be free. Biafra is the only solution. You see, all the whole insecurity happening in Nigeria to end today, Biafra is the only solution. Releasing Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is the only solution. Because the kind of insecurity that is going on in our country these days, the only person that can be able to stop this insecurity is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Imagine if he's released, the insecurity in the southeast will not be happening. All those things we are hearing up and down every day by day, you know, all of them, all these people that are causing crime activities in Nigeria, all of them will run. Immediately Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is released. So someone here said, Biafra, our noting freedom for Biafra, freedom for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Yes. We need freedom for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and also the Biafra, they should give Biafra their own nation. So someone here said, why is our judiciary and why is the government not obeying court judgments and Nigerians are keeping quiet? Like, this is the question that many people have been asking. Is as if the judiciary and they are not obeying court judgment, even after Kenya government told them that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is an innocent man, that you guys, in fact, his right was actually violated. Still, they did not obey Kenya court judgment. They are still not saying it, that the Nigerians are still quiet about it. The most painful one is that the Southeast governors are not so quiet about whatever is going on in Nigeria. Now, someone just posted now, he said, Tinubu is now using our leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, playing his politics with the slaves, the Igbo politicians. I'm telling you the honest truth. They're not playing with Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, you know. They're not keeping him as a political prisoner. That is not how it is. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is not like a political prisoner, because why will you keep an innocent man in detention for so long? This is actually so bad. So guys, please, I want you to actually, you know, listen to what the lawyer of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has to say about this, the reason why they're keeping him in detention, and the reason why the Northerners, they don't want Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to be released. So guys, please, you know, remember what I told you guys. Please, we actually use this platform, you know, to agitate for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Yes, so please, I want you to type in the comment section, free Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and also justice delayed is not what justice denied. So please, type in the comment section. Remember, this is a platform where we talk about, you know, we talk about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, we talk about everything concerning Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. So guys, please type in the comment section, free Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and also justice delayed is not what justice denied. So guys, please, I'll be right back to analyze more on the reason why the North are always afraid, are afraid. They don't want Bola Ahmed Tinubu to release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Just watch this video and I'll be right back.
The reason Nnamdi Kanu, have a discussion with him. You have been having a discussion with bandits and the so-called repentant Boko Haram. Tell me the offense of Nnamdi Kanu, because he's agitating for self-determination, which is his own constitutional fundamental rights granted to him by the constitution and the law.
Well, the government's anger is not because of the agitation, because they know that everyone has a right to agitate. But they said the way he was going about it, like and then people were being incited. Well, that's even not what I'm
what of the wife of the president incited people during the election? The wife of the president, he incited people that Igbo should go. What of the one Oba of Lagos said that Igbo should go and fall into lagoon? What of those that came out and said that Igbos will not vote? If you are not voting for APC, you will not vote. What happened to them? Has anybody been arrested? That Nnamdi Kanu said something, then you now term that thing he said as you know, is a terrorist, is a crime of terrorism. You charge him for terrorism. His own lawful organization that is registered in almost all the whole countries in America and Europe and Asia, and you now came to Nigeria, you term it a terrorist organization. Now you are now saying that now that IPOB is being recognized in almost all the whole countries in America and Europe. So you are now saying that America, France, Germany, they are recognizing a terrorist organization because you don't want anybody to agitate. You want to suppress anybody. If you talk, kill him, suppress him, jail him. In a country that is predicated on constitutional governance, it cannot work like that.
Okay, let's get back to the ministerial nomination of Bianca Ojukwu, you know, because you said he took away one from Anambra and brought in another. But remember that the president took away the minister based on the KPI results that came out, which he was not even the one, you know, that did the evaluation. It was the result given to him with which he did that, meaning that if actually the minister had performed, you know, above board in the KPI, they wouldn't have had any reason to remove her rather.
Now, still on that ministerial list, we have 48 of them, am I right? And we have 36 states in this country, including FCT 37. So, apart from Southeast, that have only 5, every other region have more than 6, apart from Southeast. Now, check since 1999, we have been having series of presidents. Just let's use what is going on now. The president is from where? Vice is from where? Speaker is from where? Senate President is from where? CJN is from where? Court of Appeal President is from where? National Industrial Court President is from where? Chief Judge of Federal High Court is from where? And they are saying that the people of Southeast belongs to this country.
The chief of
are you sure you're not? Max, are you sure you're not? I mean, it's just like what I said too. I mean, isn't it time we started to be less sentimental about this diversity?
We have to apply it now. We are talking about, we are saying that the only people that are qualified to hold all this position, nobody from South is qualified. On what basis?
Are you saying that there's
but the chief of Naval Staff is from the Southeast?
Huh?
The chief of Naval Staff?
From where? I'm talking about the key position. Number one person, number two person, number three person, number four person, number five person. The key position. We have three arms of government: the executive, the judiciary, and the parliament. You can never see anybody from Southeast there. Now, the point we are talking about is that when I'm not even talking about, I'm in court about lopsided appointments.
Okay.
I can avail that my process because I did an intensive research in that process. File it, asking court to view whether this particular appointment, whether this particular government is in line with Federal Character Establishment Act, an act of National Assembly that said that you should carry everybody along. Section 14 of the Constitution also said that you should carry everybody along. And we are not doing all these things. You are telling me that, yes, now that you have removed Kennedy Handele and you are now brought in Jan Kojuku, that the people of Southeast will jubilate. Are you talking to idiots? Look at the people that you are talking about. Check, let me start with the source. In football, the people that have made Nigeria proud are the people of Southeast. In commerce, in aviation industry, name it. In academics, they are from people of Southeast. But when it comes to power, they are not qualified. And we want them to be happy. Listen, let me tell you, like today that is Monday, go to Southeast. And my annoyance is that these things are avoidable for Christ's sake. They won at Niger. They listen and the Kalu. Let us start addressing this issue. This early morning, somebody sent me a clip, something they posted. That they said from, I think they said next week, or the next 2 weeks, that there will be nothing like federal courts in the whole of Southeast. What do I mean by federal courts? Federal courts, National Industrial Court is a federal court. Federal High Court is a federal court. Court of Appeal is a federal court. Now, the judges that are there, most of them are not Igbos. Majority of them are not Igbos. How should you risk somebody to go and preside in the Court of Appeal over the Judicial Division, Oka Judicial Division, Enugu Judicial Division? How can you appoint somebody to go and preside in Federal High Court in the Southeast, National Industrial Court in the Southeast? And we are not even thinking about all this. And the judges are not even thinking about, So the point we are talking about is that when there is a problem, look for a solution. Personally, somebody like us, we're not even, I'm defending Nnamdi, one of his wires. So when they say so you people are not doing what you're supposed to do, the person that is calling you, don't even know him. He's using a hidden number to call you. You don't even know what they're talking about court. The only thing that you went to court and you were unable to bring Nnamdi out. They're not even safe.
Okay, Maxwell, let me ask you this, because from what you're saying, I've also heard IPOB many times deny, allegations of being involved in some of the killings that happen in the Southeast and some of the, the ills that we see in the society. Even the sit-at-home in question, IPOB has also claimed that he has not asked anybody to sit at home. I don't know, get my point. So the point I'm making is that from what you're saying, it would look as if what you're actually trying to say is that it's because Nnamdi is being held,
yes,
that is why, the ills in the society in the Southeast has escalated. Does it have anything to do with him? That is what you're saying?
You know why? Nnamdi Kanu, IPOB is his initiative. He established it, he organized it. Now, when you now kidnapped him or abducted him, and unlawfully, because the Supreme Court have said that he was unlawfully brought into this country, and you kept him incommunicado, everybody on his own. This one we kill, you said at IPOB. This one we maim, he said at IPOB. Everybody on his own. That's why I asked you the question, who is IPOB? The IPOB is Nnamdi Kanu. So Nnamdi Kanu, if Nnamdi Kanu is out, you will know who is who. Simon Ekpa will talk his own, Emma Powerful will talk his own, this one will talk his own, this one. Who is IPOB? That you are even talking. Simon Ekpa is in Finland. Emma Powerful, I don't know where he's operating from. Another person is operating from somewhere. Issuing threats. Just like the one somebody told me. I don't even know where that one is coming from. So the easiest way to do is the one that you know. Nnamdi Kanu. Then tell Attorney General, as he discontinue the charges against the president of Mieti Ala Kato, discontinue that of Showore, they are all terrorism. Tell them to discontinue that of Nnamdi Kanu, and allow Nnamdi Kanu to agitate. It is his right. I told you the other day.
You see, that's where the problem is, really. The guarantee, that there will not be problems, even if Nnamdi Kanu is, because you're saying allow him to agitate, and he goes about it the way he used to, like, the government have actually feared. That may also create more problems, don't you think?
Let me tell you, there are some things that you asked me the other day whether they are talking about condition giving Nnamdi Kanu. I told you one question. I say, if you give Nnamdi Kanu condition that he feel after meeting up that condition, he will still live like a human being. so be it. But when you give him condition and you are removing that made him a human being, he will tell you no. What is that made you a human being? That thing that makes you a human being is your ability to exercise your fundamental rights. And when somebody said, now I'm going to employ you here, I'll be paying you $500,000 every month, but you will not talk. You will not move out. You say, do away with your job. When somebody said, I'm going to release you, but I'll cut one of their hands, say no. The agitation for self-determination is a fundamental right. And if you people fail to understand it, I can agitate that I need the Republic of Maxwell. Yeah. It is my right. Anybody can agitate. I don't even need crowd to follow me. It is when you now feel that you have gotten the necessary distance, the necessary need the necessary qualities, then so be it. It is now left for the president who believe in democracy, who believe in government of the people by the people, to apply an initiative. What is the initiative? Release the person. Start addressing all those issues that gave rise to this agitation. It has been there. Uwazirike was agitating during Obasanjo. A lot of people were agitating. So now that you have arrested, you come down Uwazirike that time. Nnamdi Kanu came up. Now that you have arrested Nnamdi Kanu, Simon Ekpa is there. I think this data from Ned Nwoko was telling you that even if you arrest Simon Ekpa today, another Simon Ekpa will come out. So the issue there is that address all those issues.
Right. So for you, it's not about ministerial appointment.
No. That one.
Okay,
that is a complete distraction.
It shouldn't even come in.
Okay. After now, let Bianca come and address the Igbos in Enugu.
All right.
So guys, you guys were able to, see and listen to what the lawyer of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu said. Now, this is what I have to say. The Northerners are trying their possible best so that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will not be released. Even if he's released, they should give him heavy conditions. You cannot give an innocent man heavy conditions. You're giving him conditions. You're just trying to, violate his human rights. You're giving him conditions that before he's going to submit his passport, he's going to renounce Biafra. I don't think Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will accept this kind of conditions. I don't think. Instead of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to accept this condition, he would rather remain in the GSS custody, because this is a man that said that my agenda is to make sure that Biafra come to pass. Biafra is actualized in Nigeria. I've seen many people commenting, oh, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu needs to be free in order for peace to reign in Nigeria. Yes, that is the only solution. That is the only solution. The insecurity in Nigeria is even getting tougher day by day. So the only thing that can restore peace in Nigeria again is if Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is released. That is the only thing. So guys, that's all we have for today. Please, I want you guys to drop your comments below. And also, please, the normal thing we do here is just like a ritual. Please type on the comment section, free Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and justice delayed is not what justice denied. Please type in the comment section. That's just like I told you guys, this platform is where we use this platform to agitate for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, to tell the federal government that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is innocent. And also, I hope you guys know that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will be coming to court again on the 10th October 2025, and I'll be giving you guys live updates concerning what is going on and everything concerning Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. We'll be saying it here. So please don't forget to share this live, subscribe to this channel for any latest updates we'll be dropping here. So guys, thanks for watching and see you guys again in my next live section.